There are a number of ways to check if the tracking code is firing correctly on your website. First of all, you'll see real-time data when someone visits Google Analytics in your account, but the other way is to actually just check the coding has been correctly applied. Now you can do this by looking at the page source. To do that, right click and you go down to view page source. And this will bring you to the source code here. So there are two options here. The first is to look for the hard-coded UA code, which is the Google Analytics code. And you do that by pressing Control F and look for UA hyphen. Now, this is not a Google Analytics code. There's only one instance of it on the website. So that must mean that they're tracking their website in another way. Let's look for a Google Tag Manager code, which is the other way that you can track your website. And we do that by looking for GTM. So this has a Google Tag Manager code on the site. It doesn't have a hard-coded UA code. Most websites will be using Google Tag Manager these days. So to get your Google Analytics firing in Google Tag Manager, you take that UA code from your code area and settings of Google Analytics and you put that into the interface of Google Tag Manager. And that is a more efficient way of putting Google Analytics on your website for advanced users. For everyone else, simply hard code it onto every single page of your website. So we can test using a tool what tags are firing on the website. This tool is called Google Tag Assist and it's a free Chrome extension. So let's take a look. So I have the Chrome extension installed. I did a Google search for Google Tag Assistant and added it to my Chrome. So what I do here is I click it and then I enable it and then I start recording. This gives me a breakdown of what's happening, and then when I refresh the page, go back into Tag Assistant, I can see we've got one remarketing tag, we've got a Google Analytics tag which we couldn't find because it was firing through Google Tag Manager, but Tag Assistant is able to read both. So how does Google Analytics or indeed Google Tag Manager fire on your website? So when you visit a new page, what happens is a request is made to the server. The JavaScript code is dropped on my site. In this case, it's Google Tag Manager. A temporary or persistent cookie is dropped onto the browser. That depends on the Google Analytics setup. The session data is then sent to Google Analytics. The data is processed by the Analytics tool, which is the interface that you see, and then we're able to look at the reports and understand the data. The cookie that was dropped in my browser expires when the session is finished. In some cases it may be necessary to customize your Google Analytics code, but for 99% of websites this is not the case, and in fact it's much easier to do any customization of Google Analytics in Google Tag Manager, because rather than writing code you can just press a couple of buttons in Google Tag Manager and that will do the customization for you. So if your site accepts transactions, your web development team will need to do some specialist e-commerce coding on the last page and the checkout stages of your website in order to track it directly with Google Analytics. This will then link up your traffic sources, your campaigns, your ROI for Google products to revenue generated on your website. So for Magento, for Shopify and the major e-commerce platforms, you can enter your UA code into the interface and it will set up all of the e-commerce tracking that is required to send the data to Google Analytics. It's only for custom or bespoke builds that you need to code your own e-commerce transaction engine.